Here is a list of the Best Picture Oscar winners, all 95 of them ranked from bottom to top. My criteria in order of importance is based on 1. Personal choice, 2. Filmmaking acumen, 3. Whether the film has stood the test of time, which means some of the most recent films will be a bit lower on the list, and 4. The film's lasting cultural importance. One caveat before we begin. I love filmmaking. I love films. I'm a writer. I'm a filmmaker myself, so there's no judgment here. Nor is there a deep look at what could have won or should have won, just a ranking of the films that the Oscars have bestowed their highest award to. So, here we go. Number 95, Crash, 2005. When I was in high school, we wrote a play about peer pressure that was, looking back, patronizing and condescending. That's a little bit about what Crash feels like. Beats the audience over the head with these big topics. It has not aged well, and it has the unfortunate misjustice of being in the same year as Brokeback Mountain, which the Oscars were not ready to honor that year. But it has future winner Sandra Bullock and future winner Brendan Fraser in it. Number 94, Oliver, 1968. This is a musical about homeless children during the Industrial Revolution. Not my cup of tea. I don't think it has aged poorly. The imagery is things that make me kind of uncomfortable, although there are a handful of decent songs in it. Number 93, The Lost Weekend, 1945. 1945 was just out of the war, and there was a lot of PTSD as we now know it. This is about alcoholism. It's a depressing film, and it is definitely a product of its time. That being said, Ray Milland is fantastic in it. Number 92, Life of Emile Zola, 1937. Who? It's a French writer, apparently. I've never heard the name before I watched this film. I do know that after I watched it, there was a lot of courtroom speeches. But even beyond that, the film is muddy visually. It's hissy in the audio. And it just really hasn't stood up, considering 2 years later is considered the best year in filmmaking in the early part of Hollywood. Number 91, Gigi, 1958. This is about a much older man singing love songs about a teenage girl. I am kind of surprised that this movie has not been canceled. Times have not caught up to it, apparently. It does give credit to some really fantastic visual design. Number 90, Marty, 1955. This is the smallest working budget in this list, and it shows. It's a very small slice of life in New York City, quite forgettable, and certainly in our day and age, not something that modern audiences are very interested in. But Ernest Borgnine is very sweet in it. Number 89, Gentleman's Agreement, 1947. This is another one that's one of those post-war films that have aged poorly. This time it is about anti-Semitism. Those topics have been done better, and this is a product of its time for sure. Number 88, Going My Way, 1944. I watched it, didn't find any of the songs memorable, thought Bing Crosby was perfectly serviceable, but there's just been tons and tons of better films, certainly better musicals than this one. Number 87, A Man for All Seasons, 1966. There's another film on the list about that same time called Tom Jones. These were Oscar bait costume dramas, almost exclusively about the British royalty, in this case Henry VIII and Thomas More. We don't make films like that anymore to really speak of. It's pretty to look at, but other than that, very unmemorable. Number 86, All About Eve, 1950. Yeah, I'm going to get slack for putting it low on the list, but it's a soap opera. It's over the top, incredibly over the top. It's melodramatic. And one shining light in it that I did like was Betty Davis just camping it up. That's about it. Number 85, Braveheart, 1995. This is a dirty, ugly, muddy looking film, and you sit through 3 hours of it, and it feels heavy and dirty and weighty. Not that that's a bad thing, but just on a list like this, I didn't enjoy watching it then. I haven't enjoyed watching it since. And it also feels, now that we know a little bit more about Mel Gibson, like his personal project. Number 84, In the Heat of the Night, 1967. Wow, okay. So a film about racial tensions in 1967. Yeah, guys, it's spot on. But it doesn't really stand up to the test of time like some others. That being said, Sidney Poitier is great, and Rod Steiger is definitely Oscar-worthy. Number 83, Rocky, 1976. This one was actually lower on my list, but I worked through some issues based on my criteria. This was made during the bicentennial, 1976. It's an underdog story, so it has this Americana feel to it. I mean, he's boxing in front of a giant American flag with red, white, and blue shorts. So there's some iconic imagery in here. But that said, it's not a very good looking film. It's grainy and mucky, which fits a little bit into the theme, but I just don't think it holds up onto our big list. Number 82, Tom Jones, 1963. This is the other Oscar bait costume drama. This one is slightly higher because it used some advanced film techniques that I actually kind of enjoyed, and it is the who's who of famous British actors at that time. Number 81, The Apartment, 1960. Here's the plot. A boss needs an employee's apartment basically to get laid. It's creepy. I know a lot of people like it. They like it because of Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine, but neither of them save it for me. Number 80, Moonlight, 2016. This is just low on the list because it's fairly new. We're going to find out in years later whether it does hold up. I kind of was bored, but I also have my master's from an art and design school in filmmaking, and this film kind of felt like all the stuff I sat through in graduate school. Is it worthy of being on this list? I think here, just not higher. Number 79, Annie Hall, 1977. This is Woody Allen's real first big hit on that level. Clever writing, but if you really look at the film now, it really has that New York shtick thing that just hasn't aged well. And of course, Woody Allen hasn't aged well. Number 78, Nomadland, 2020. It's too new to be higher, but it gets some points for being one of the very first films, if not the first film on the list that is kind of a documentary, but with real actors. That being said, it is very slow. But kudos that it was directed by an Asian woman who won the Oscar. Number 77, All the King's Men, 1949. Not a memorable story. It was interesting, but it has been lost in history. But I do think the film itself is well made. Number 76, Spotlight, 2015. This has the All the President's Men issue, which is it's timely about freedom of the press, certainly, but my word, so many other films have done it better or more interesting. And in this case, it's about the Catholic Church, which wasn't really a big overarching issue like when All the President's Men tackled Watergate, which had just happened on the presidential level. 76 for me. 75, Argo, 2012. It's got a really amazing, clever first 20 minutes. It's got a really amazing last 20 minutes. And then somewhere in the middle, it's this very, very normal story. Meh. Number 74, Patton, 1970. George C. Scott single-handedly carries this film. It is that simple. And if you're not a Scott fan, you're not going to be a fan of this film. It's got some imagery of him in front of the American flag doing that big speech at the beginning, and the canvas for the war stuff is quite big. But even then, it feels like it's from 1970, kind of dated. Number 73, Green Book, 2018. This was a weird year. This is a movie where the Farrelly brothers, who had done gross out comedies before this, made a decent little film. And because of all the other films that were stacked up in the Best Picture race that year, this one was like the tortoise and the hare. This one just kind of slowly crossed the finish line before everyone else. It's a decent film. Number 72, Cimarron, 1930-31. I liked it. Yeah, the performances are stagey and a little bit clunky, but it's got this weird charm to it. And that land race scene is, at the end, epic for the years 1930-31. Number 71, Terms of Endearment, 1983. This is not even James L. Brooks' best film. I think that one goes to Broadcast News, which did not win the Oscar. James Brooks came from TV, and this was his first big jump into the movies, and they honored him for that. Number 70, Mrs. Miniver, 1942. 1942, a war piece. Yeah, it's going to win the Oscar. Of course it is. This one is slow. It is very long, and it's sort of nominally about the war. It's a decent choice for the year it was made. Number 69, American Beauty, 1999. Oof. Kevin Spacey being weird in a weird movie that is weird on its own as a movie. Yeah, struggling to watch this one again to revisit it, knowing sort of the Kevin Spacey story. But it has future Oscar winner Chris Cooper and future Oscar winner Allison Janney, so it gets some points for that. Number 68, Chariots of Fire, 1981. It's got the iconic running on the beach scene with that amazing Vangelis score. But then other than that, it's a very standard, very sort of slow-moving, taking its time costume drama. 68. Number 67, Broadway Melody, 2829. I am a big sucker for the big studio Hollywood musical. Yeah, I understand tons of films are in that vein that are better than this one. But to be on this list, here it is. Not high on the list, but not on the bottom either. Number 66, Coda, 2021, one of the newest. It's too new right now to be higher. But even then, it's a fairly standard storytelling style. It's got a unique bend to it with the sign language. So yeah, 66 for me. Number 65, How Green Was My Valley in 1941. This was the year Citizen Kane really should have won the Oscar. And that is too bad because How Green Was My Valley is actually a really, really good film. It just has the misfortune of being in the same year as Citizen Kane. Number 64, Cavalcade, 1932-33. I liked the style. It has this parade of years going by, stopping briefly year to year to check in on these families. I thought it was clever. I thought it was an interesting storytelling style, and I thought it was unique. Number 63, No Country for Old Men, 2007. This is not even remotely the Coen brothers' best work for me, nor is it their most interesting, but it came out at the right time and they won the Oscar for it. Javier Bardem makes this much higher on my list. Number 62, Million Dollar Baby, 1994. I like this a little less than Unforgiven. This is a decent sports film. It hits all the right notes. It checks all the right boxes. but it doesn't really knock my socks off or anything. Number 61, Mutiny on the Bounty, 1935. The remakes of this film are great. The original is great. But even then, as far as tall ships movies go, there's a handful of memorable moments in it, and the filmmaking is quite good. Number 60, Platoon, 1986. Oliver Stone, right out of the gate, just swinging for the fences. There's other war films that are better than this, certainly, but here the direction is solid and there are some incredibly memorable performances. Number 59, My Fair Lady, 1964. If you know The King's Speech, which also won the Oscar, they're very similar, teaching somebody who doesn't know how to speak in public to speak in public inside of a British aristocracy. Great. This one is timeless because of the songs in it that are really, really catchy. But even then, it's a bit theatrical for my taste and a little bit dated. Number 58, Unforgiven, 1992. Solid Western from Clint Eastwood, but I like some other Clint Eastwood films better than this one. That said, Gene Hackman is absolutely Oscar-worthy in it. Number 57, On the Waterfront, 1954. 5 acting Oscar nods for this film. Iconic lines. Iconic performance by Marlon Brando. But that New York backwater boxer shtick, if you like it, you like it, but it feels a bit dated for me. Number 56, Birdman, 2014. I got Steadicam certified in film school. And this is basically just a big exercise in sequences of one-shots. Cool, but we did these things kind of in college, not at that level. It's not as fascinating for me as it is for other people. But the jazz soundtrack is pretty great. Number 55, A Beautiful Mind, 2001. Ron Howard makes likable films. He's always made likable films, and this is one of them. For some reason, he managed to make math and mental disorders likable. Yeah, and the score is great too. Number 54, The French Connection, 1971. Once again, Gene Hackman killing it. It's got some great gripping moments in it. But in terms of filmmaking acumen, it's a product of the 70s. Gritty, grungy, dirty, kind of hard to watch. Number 53, 12 Years a Slave, 2013. Okay, yes, it is 53rd on my list. It's not a fun movie to watch. Not that it needs to be. Yes, it has importance and quality. And it will, I'm sure, stand the test of time. But boy, I won't watch it again. So right now, it's sitting on my list in the middle. All right, number 52, The Great Ziegfeld, 1936. Once again, sucker for the big studio musical. And this one's great. Who cares about the acting? I'm here to see Ziegfeld Follies, and they gave me these huge spectacle moments. And that's my go-to for it. Number 51, From Here to Eternity, 1953. Post-war film, shot in post-war, about topics in post-war. I get it. It's got a lot of fans, and it also has 5 acting nods, which is saying something. Number 50, The Shape of Water, 2017. This is an old-fashioned monster movie updated by a master working in his comfort zone. Del Toro is on fire directing this film, and this is going to probably move up my list as years go on. Number 49, The Sound of Music, 1965. Personally, not a fan of it. I was in it in high school. I get it. I get why so many people like it, which is why it's in the middle of my list. The songs are clever, but I actually don't even think this is Rodgers and Hammerstein's best musical anyhow. Okay, number 48, The Deer Hunter, 1978. Kind of like 12 Years a Slave. Brutal, hard to watch, puts you right into the reality of the Vietnam conflict here and over there. It moves higher on my list because Christopher Walken, for the few scenes that he's in, is absolutely breathtaking in it. Number 47, The Best Years of Our Lives, 1946. Once again, about the war in 1946. It ticks all the right boxes to win. It's fairly memorable, but not necessarily groundbreaking to be a little bit higher. Number 46, The Departed, 2006. This is Martin Scorsese's first Oscar win for movie. But it is a remake, so it's not even his original film, which is a little bit troubling for this list for me. And also, I think generally people don't even consider this Scorsese's best film. So there it is. Number 45, Everything Everywhere All at Once, 2022. Yeah, this one sits right in the middle of the list because it's so unique. It's got modern filmmaking techniques. It's got stunts. It's got drama. It's got meta. It's strange and unusual. And it is the only film on this list, the only one that has won 3 acting wins in a Best Picture. Number 44, Gandhi, 1982. It's got scale. It's got importance. It's about a true story, about a true leader. And it is also very long and very, very slow in spots. Number 43, The King's Speech, 2010. Much like My Fair Lady, this one, if you're not really into the British royalty thing, kind of is a shoulder shrug. But Colin Firth is incredible, and I think Geoffrey Rush is actually better than him. Number 42, Hamlet, 1948. Oh my God. Laurence Olivier's doing Hamlet, the right piece at the right time, and the Oscars finally gave the big win to a Shakespeare classic. Kudos to them. It has earned its place on this list. Number 41, The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957. That whistling, that build up to the explosion. It's a great film, and it earns its spot higher on my list. Number 40, Slumdog Millionaire, 2008. I saw this again recently and loved it and respected it much more the second time. Danny Boyle's eye is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Worth watching again if you haven't seen it. Number 39, Grand Hotel, 1931-32. Yeah, I get it. It's clunky in parts. But that cast. You've got Greta Garbo. You have both Barrymores. You have Joan Crawford. And you have these really cool stories in all of these different rooms in the hotel. Guys, it's fantastic. Number 38, The Hurt Locker, 2009. It's timely, it is tense, it is gritty, and it does not feel like other war films, mainly because it's about diffusing bombs, which was so incredibly unique in storytelling. And it's 38 on my list because Catherine Bigelow was the first female to win the Best Director Oscar. Number 37, Out of Africa, 1985. This sits in the same category as Lawrence of Arabia and The English Patient for me, although not quite as legendary as those other two. Still, this is an epic piece of filmmaking. Number 36, Rebecca, 1940. Hitchcock at his classiest, before he really turned into the Hitchcock we know. There is still a masterful capture of suspense. The mystery in it is really great. It's got a fantastic cast, especially Judith Anderson's Mrs. Danvers, still haunting me. Number 35, The Last Emperor, 1987. Okay, in a different era, like today's era, this would have been made in China, in Chinese language with subtitles. that didn't happen back then. But that doesn't diminish its sweeping scope and amazing score and all of those incredibly memorable images. 1934, The English Patient. 1996. Oof. Those desert landscape airplane shots, that love affair. Guys, this is Lawrence of Arabia level. And I think Ralph Fiennes rivals Peter O'Toole. Number 33, Chicago, 2002. Candor and Ebb, every single song of theirs is awesome. The dancing in this is really, other than American in Paris, like the quintessential dancing movie. The topic is about notoriety. It's about staying in the press. So it was timely. It's timely now. Absolutely deserving of its place. Number 32, Wings, 2728. It is the only silent film on the list, but it is even then very underrated. Spectacular flying battle sequences, so far ahead of its time with the flying footage. Number 31, Gone with the Wind, 1939. Classic from start to finish in that 1939 year that all the films that were up are almost all classics. This is American history at its finest, but it's not quite so high because, boy, it is long. And I mean long. Number 30, The Greatest Show on Earth, 1952. Yeah, I know. Go ahead and give me a lot of the crap. But it was one of my favorites as a kid. Circus Maximus by Cecil B. DeMille. Just stunning to watch. Jimmy Stewart, Gloria Graham, Charlton Heston. I can't say enough about this film, but I'm coming from a very personal choice. Number 29, Kramer versus Kramer, 1979. Oof. This is brutal in its honest portrayal of a dissolving marriage. Dustin Hoffman crushes it. And this is the film that really did introduce Meryl Streep to the world. Number 28, Driving Miss Daisy, 1989. Yeah, it's subtle. It's intelligent. The performances are spot on. And the script has this racial edge to it that's wrapped in this beautiful, touching friendship. It is a very, very delicate balance. But the reason it's on this list so high is because the source material that it came from won the Pulitzer Prize. It's earned its pedigree. Number 27, Around the World in 80 Days, 1956. Haters are going to hate. Once again, one of my favorites as a kid. It was fun. It was exciting. It was kid-friendly. And once again, it is sourced material from Jules Verne. I read the book. The source material is great. I watched the movie. The movie's great. There it is. Number 26, Midnight Cowboy, 1969. Okay, this one's a tough watch. Yes, it is dated, but it is no less captivating in its portrayal of seedy world of hustlers in New York City, but not in the same way that some of the other films on this list do. This wasn't your mafioso types or your boxers. This was seedier than that, and we had never really seen a film that portrayed it like that. This film takes risks. Number 25, Godfather Part 2, 1974. Of the three, this one is not my favorite. I'll get to the other one in a minute. But generally, this one's considered the best. I get it. This one's got 5 acting nods, and this is Pacino coming into its own and deserving its place in my top 25. Number 24, The Artist, 2011. Okay, my degree is in film. This is silent film history literally coming to life. It is pitch perfect and Oscar worthy of its actors. Absolutely stunning. Holds up on second viewing too. Number 23, Gladiator, 2000. Like Ben-Hur, which is higher on my list, it is epic, it's iconic, it's led by Russell Crowe, And I am quite sure that over the years, this one will keep moving up and up a lot of people's lists. Number 22, Rain Man, 1988. I saw it as a teenager, cried, loved it. Hoffman, who I've always loved, is incredible. And the script has this really beautiful, tender friendship that has this very harsh reality behind it with autism. That's saying a lot. Number 21, Ben-Hur, 1959. Although it's iconic, it's crazy long, yes. And there are some parts that are not quite that interesting. But to offset it, woof, Charlton Heston, that chariot race alone, yeah, pushing near my top 20 for sure. Number 20, It Happened One Night, 1934. Every single writer who is writing any kind of romantic comedy needs to watch this film. The chemistry between Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert, absolutely deserving of the Big Five Oscars that year. It was the first one to do that, and deservedly so. Number 19, Parasite, 2019. It is already being studied by film scholars, breaking down the architecture in it, the class structure, the plot development, the camera shots. Great film on every level. And this is going to be higher on the list as years go by. Number 18, The Sting, 1973. This one snuck in there between the two Godfathers. And it's a classic Hollywood backlot romp. It's got Newman and Redford at their snarkiest. It is so much fun to watch. And it's got that amazing Scott Joplin ragtime score. Number 17, An American in Paris, 1951. Once again, Gene Kelly at his height. And yes, Singing in the Rain 1 year later was actually much more memorable, but it didn't win the Oscar, and wasn't even up for the Oscar actually, which is why it's not on this list. But that said, An American in Paris is actually a work of art. The ballet scene is legendary. Shakespeare in Love, number 16, 1998. Writer Tom Stoppard has a huge list of awards as a writer. And this film was done in the Amadeus style. It's not supposed to be real. It is a fictional retelling of something. And as a writer, I get it. You can't just tell a documentary in film and have people not complain. But with that said, it is gorgeous to look at. It is lush. It is funny. Paltrow and Dench won Oscars. It is going to not be higher on anyone's list because Saving Private Ryan, blah, 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 whatever. That film didn't make this list. This film did. But it is not in my top 10 because of Harvey Weinstein's connection to it. That will not age well. Number 15, Silence of the Lambs, 1991. It's the first horror film to win the Oscar. And it's also one of them to earn the Big Five. So frightening, so unnerving. And Hopkins and Foster, iconic. Number 14, Ordinary People, 1980. It's one of my personal favorites. It is not just sad. It is devastatingly sad. And it has sat with me for decades. And I've only ever seen it once. And it has stuck with me. Number 13, Lawrence of Arabia, 1962. Come on. Unforgettable landscapes, the direction, those incredible wide shots. It is David Lean unmatched on any level. Number 12, Titanic, 1997. I'm going to poo-poo all the naysayers. This thing is epic. And if you had the joy of seeing it on the big screen, for the year 1997, it is technically flawless. It is also heartbreaking and beautiful. And that ending, say what you want in the memes, it's gorgeous. Number 11, Forrest Gump, 1994. This thing is just growing year by year, iconic and more iconic. It's hit every level of pop culture. But even then, it is addressing disability, both mental and physical. It's addressing addiction. It is addressing coping with death. I mean, it works when it really shouldn't have worked. Number 10, West Side Story, 1961. The gold standard for musicals. It is that simple. Every Bernstein song is singable. It's got source material from Romeo and Juliet, as well as the Broadway play. The plotline is gorgeous. The reason the remake was also nominated for Best Picture was because the original is amazing. Yeah, there it is. Top 10. Number 9, You Can't Take It With You, 1938. If you've not seen it or if you don't know this film, run out and find it. Jimmy Stewart plays a straight man to a family of crazies, and not just crazy, madcap crazy. Go watch this film. It's fantastic. Number 8, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1975. Jack Nicholson, who owns this film, is actually upstaged by a relatively unknown actress, Louise Fletcher. Yeah, that doesn't ever happen in Hollywood, and yet here it is. And it's the reason it won the Big Five. Also, the novel that this is based on is stunning. Number 7, Schindler's List, 1993. My dad and I went to see this. And at intermission, nobody in the lobby spoke. It's heartbreaking. It's legendary, and there are moments of sheer terror that outweigh any horror film. Number 6, All's Quiet on the Western Front, 2930. The remake is done in the original German, as it should be. But 100 years earlier, this film just maintains its power. Some of the sequences in it are so unforgettable, given that it was 100 years ago. That's why it's almost in my top 5. Number 5, Return of the King, 2003. Yes, I understand that the Oscar that it won is really for all 3 films. Fine, so be it. This one is for the ages. It was made 20 years ago, and there's still nothing like it. Hasn't been anything like it before, and still hasn't been anything like it since. It is a truly, truly unique film. All right. Number 4, Casablanca, 1943. Believe it or not, it's a small film if you watch it. It's all shot in the Warner Brothers backlot. But that gripping love story, that World War II high tension, the stakes are high. It's got the iconic lines. Yeah, number 4. Number 3, Godfather, 1972. It's earned its place on my top 3, even though it is not my personal choice. It has spawned countless other films in the same vein. And yet all of those people bend the knee to this film. It's truly legendary. Number 2, Dances with Wolves, 1990. Yeah, top 2. It's getting a lot of flack even now for the voiceover, but the book that it was written from is all in diary form. So how else would you transfer that to film? It was this person's story. The old-fashioned Americana aspect of it is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's technically flawless. And the John Barry score is my all-time favorite musical score of any film. Number 1, Amadeus, 1984. Yes, I have 2 Milos Forman films in my top 10. This is one of my all-time favorite films, not just because I'm a musician, although it helps. This play that it was based on, won the Tony Award. And the people in that play won a bunch of awards. So the source material is incredible. F. Murray Abraham is absolutely deserving of his Oscar, and every aspect of this filmmaking is at its finest. So there it is. there's my list. And if you haven't seen some of these, hopefully you go out of your way and find some of these to put on your playlist very, very soon.